Hello all, welcome to another lesson of the Rook versus Pawns and games. This lesson we are going to talk about the positions where the king is in front of the pawns. When the king is in front of the pawns, this is normally an easy win. So every time we place the king there, well, we can expect easily a win. But we also need to be a bit more comfortable with the technique because let's just take a look at this position where the pawns are connected and on the same rank. Uh, so how can you drive the black king away so you can catch a pawn, or because the pawns are pretty close, how can our king approach the pawns? Of course, the main idea, the basic idea, is to force the pawns, one of the pawns, to advance so we get a square for our king to penetrate, and then it's gonna be easy to bring the rook and with the help of the rook grabbing the pawn. So let's start by that. Let's see what happens if one pawn advances, like for example here. Okay, so we get the square for our king. Let's use it. And of course, now black needs to keep protecting the pawn, otherwise I take the c pawn. Now I need to move my rook, but of course I need to attack the most probable to fall pawn. This situation is the c pawn, but as you can see, if I was to play, I need to take the pawn with check because otherwise black can simply promote the other pawn, forcing my king to go away, and then the king takes the rook. Like, for example, in this situation, it's very easy to understand that I can't take the pawn because otherwise, what happens is black promotes to queen, and when I take the queen, it's a draw. So be careful just not to rush things too much. Here, we simply just waste one tempo. Notice that we are still attacking this pawn, so the king needs to come back to protect the pawn. And now, yes, we can take it. It's a check, and then the king goes somewhere, and we grab the other pawn, and now we get a simply rook endgame that I think everyone knows how to win. So basically, we want one pawn to advance, either one or the other one. So we get this way to attack the pawns. But what if black doesn't help and moves the king? Let's start by seeing it moving the king to the corner. Well, this allows us, because the king can't move more to the side, so it's on the border already. We can simply use this move to cut the king away. So the king has no moves, which of course will force black to play a pawn move. And when it plays a pawn move, we already know that's the ideal situation. So our king can control the pawns. Of course, notice that if black moves the king, it will be checkmate. So black is forced to move again the pawn. Then I take one pawn, and of course, the king has no options here because if it moves, it's checkmate again. So the only way is to promote, but then it's not stalemate because the king still can move. So going to the corner in this situation is not the best move for black. Let's see what happens if it goes to the other side where black has more space. Then the way to force black to advance the pawn is going to the other side. Okay, we are going to go to give a check from behind, from the top. Now the king goes anywhere. Notice that now the b pawn is unprotected, so we attack it. We already know if black advances one pawn, it's gonna be easy. So the king comes back to protect the pawn, but now I simply wait a tempo, placing black in zugzang, and so black will be forced to advance the pawn like this. Okay, and when it advances the pawn, I use the square for my king, so the pawns are now more vulnerable. Of course, the king, if it wants to move away, it simply grab one, then control the other. okay, and it's gonna be easy win. So when you get this situation, just remember we want to go behind to force the pawns to advance. If they advance for free, well, thank you, and it's gonna be easier. Okay, let's move on to another position, a different one. Now the pawns are already advanced, but our king is not in the front of the pawn. So in this position, black is threatening to promote to a queen with check. So we basically have two options: either go to control the pawn from the top or from the bottom. Well, if you want, you can pause a bit and try to see for yourself what is best. And the wrong move is to go to the top. Why? Because now we can force the position, as black is very fast to threat the promotion. Like now we are black is keeping the pawns safe, so we can take any pawn, and now it's threatening to advance the e pawn, so it's trying to advance the e pawn. So we need to control the pawn, but now black comes back, so we can't progress. And if we do something like, for example, check, it's the same thing. How can we progress from now? It's threatening again, and now I can't go to the bottom to save the situation, so I need to go back to the same places. So again, black simply does the same, take the same option, and simply we're going to agree a draw very fast. So when in this situation, when we want to come with our king in front of the pawn, so we get the easy win, we need first to control the first rank with our rook. So now the king can't come to the first rank, needs to go to a side, and now we have two options: either we use the king to go immediately to the first rank, or we move the rook. But what happens if the king goes to the first rank? Well, simply black plays also to the first rank, threatening now to promote, check, and then promote one of the pawns. Rook needs to sacrifice, and we get, of course, a draw. That's not the intention. So this forces white to go back with a check, but then the king goes back, and we get exactly the same position. So we are still winning, but we can't go directly because we can't progress that way. So let's see here, back one move. And the right move is to go with the rook to the other side. So now we are at the same, controlling the first rank, and in the next move it will be easier to bring our king. So even if the king tries to delay that move from the king, we also can waste one tempo, and then when the king goes back, I have my king now, and now it's an easy situation because I simply check, the king goes to the key square to win pawns. King tries to move, but we can attack the pawn. Now if the king moves back, it's a check, and so the pawns are lost. Remember this: when in these situations, we need to come with the rook to control first the first rank, so black king can't control our own king to grab that rank. And don't go above, because otherwise you are going to be in a situation where you need always to control the promotion of the pawn, and you can't win. Okay, last position. Let's move here to a last position. Okay, this position we are going to see first white to move and then black to move. This is an interesting position because very similar to the situation we saw before. So one pawn has already advanced, but now the king has not much space, and this is also important for the defensive side. This is a draw, no matter which one to move. We can see it from the black starting, but white tries to come to the first rank, but the king is controlling again the square. Now we can waste a tempo with the rook, but as we saw in the previous positions, black keeps controlling the possibility of the king reaching b2. So the king needs to move back, check. but now the kings go back, and of course white can't progress again with the king because we have the same situation, and because the king is already on one of the border files, the rook can't go to the other side to control the first rank, so white can't progress. Don't make the mistake to try to play smart, okay? Because otherwise we can also lose the game. So, okay, here we have no possible progression, so maybe we can try with a different approach. Let's go from behind. Okay, the way to play from black is again coming from for the corner. Now I need to keep controlling because otherwise it's gonna be a promotion. But surprise, surprise, we get the same promotion. And notice well this technique. I take the queen, the pawn advances attacking our rook. Only way is to pin the pawn, otherwise the pawn will promote in the next move and the rook needs to sacrifice, and then we get a draw. The king goes to the corner, and now white to move, and there's no useful move either from grabbing the pawn and stalemate the game. It's a draw. If you notice, the king can't move away, otherwise I can promote to the queen. And if, of course, I keep controlling the pawn, well, I'm not controlling the promotion, so check, and now it's white that it's lost. So, coming back to the start, this is a special situation where the king can reach the corner very fast. And because the rook can't go to the other side, it's possible for black to draw the game. The same happens in the same position if it's black to play. If it's black to play, well, I think you can find easily the correct way to guarantee a draw. We keep the control of the corner and try to, again, if the king tries to enter, we simply avoid it, as we saw before. And if, for example, the rook tries to play smart and go to the other side, we are going to simply lose the game. Just, for example, attacking the pawn, I can go in front, and now I can't avoid the promotion, and it will be a win for black. So, as again, I suggest don't play smart if you are not aware of what you are doing. So here we basically are forced to accept that even if I lose a tempo, the king keeps simply the same position. And as you saw before, this is more or less like passing the move again. But as we saw, no matter who's to play on this position, it will be always a draw. So, hope you have enjoyed and have learned something about the way to win when the king gets in front of the pots. Okay, see you in next lessons. Bye bye.